The term White House baby boom is trending as several members of the Trump administration shared news that their families are growing. From Vice President J.D. Vance and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to Deputy Chiefs of Staff Stephen Miller and James Blair, a baby boom is underway at the White House.
The Wall Street Journal, in an article titled "MAGA Women Defy the Birth Dearth," notes that in the 1970s, there was little to no partisan difference in birth rates, with average women expecting 2.1 children across her lifetime. A partisan fertility gap has emerged over the years, with conservatives having more children than liberals. While Democrats are increasingly the party of the childless, Republicans are increasingly the party of parents.
In 2024, the U.S. total fertility rate drastically decreased to 1.63 children. Go ahead.
The Institute for Family Studies found that counties where President Trump received less than 25% of votes had a median total fertility rate of 1.31, as compared to counties in which the vote share for Trump was more than 75%, had a total fertility rate of 1.84.
It's not just the United States. Over the past half century, almost all of the richest countries in the world have seen a reduction in the total fertility rate. But now even the less rich countries like Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Thailand, and Turkey are less fertile than America.
A research by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation shows that by 2050, over 3/4 of countries will not have fertility rates high enough to sustain their population over time. So why is the birth rate declining?
Well, the article mentions an interesting quote saying, "For those who blame feminism, Iran's total fertility rate 1.6 is a problem. For those who blame liberalism, North Korea's rate of 1.8 is a problem. For those who blame a lack of state-funded childcare, Norway's rate of 1.4 is a problem."
The article also talks about an analysis by the Financial Times that shows that across all the developed countries, conservatives are having almost as many children as they were a few decades ago. It's on the progressive left where birth rates have fallen.
This is so funny to me because I just feel like I'm completely with women, a feminist. Women should have babies if they want to. I think they can have them if they don't have to have them, they don't want to. And I think the conversation, like calling women who maybe lean to the left, like Taylor Swift, Cat Lady, and all the stuff that happened in the past, I think it's just so demeaning because there's so much that's going on and people can make choices now. And I think as somebody who I never had this idea in my mind of exactly how my life was going to look. Some people grow up and I'm going to have my best friend. I'm going to have 5 kids. And she went about it and got started super early. I was surprised to be pregnant and I was happy about it. But that's life. And I think the fact that I have this booming career and I folded my child into my life and now we brilliantly make it work out how it works for us are these beautiful options that women have these days. And the constant back and forth about conservative or a liberal woman, especially when we see what's going on in other countries that don't even have access to the same things that we have access to. There's still declining birth rates. So it's not, the ideology connection doesn't really make sense. I think it's important to not keep having that conversation. It seems archaic to keep having that conversation and allow women to just make the choices. We know historically women didn't have as many choices, getting the right to vote later and all the other things. And so now that women are working more and chasing dreams, it can work in conjunction with children. You can decide not to have children, but it all is a choice. And that to me is a beautiful thing.
What do you think explains that partisan gap, though, in the U.S., where liberal women are having fewer children than conservative women? Why do you think they make that choice not to have children more often?
I don't know. I guess if you're looking historically at fighting for women's rights and wanting to advance women so that they're on the same exact playing field as their counterparts of men, then maybe people with that choice as those rights were won decided to continue to pursue whether it's education or career or just admittedly, some of my friends just actually don't want kids. One of my friends lives in Bali full time and writes for several magazines as a travel writer and was that a kid doesn't work for our lifestyle. Every 3 months we move to Thailand, wherever we're going to move. And that's what she likes to do. To me, my parents' generation having that conversation would be absurd. To my grandma, for sure. She'd be like, what's wrong with your friend? She needs to go to the doctor. And some people are like, no, we have autonomy now, which I think is a beautiful thing. I'm not sure what makes people have kids or don't have kids. I know that younger people and the demographics are probably continuously going to change because younger people don't feel so aligned with either party, right? They're starting to be more independent as these polls have come out. And younger people also are drinking less, right? Maybe millennials are supposed to be the most drunk generation. Maybe we didn't have babies because we were too drunk. Who knows? I'm not really sure what the reasoning is, but I do think that the choice is a good thing. and that young kids are making their own economies with the digital space. They're walking into offices, and my aunt works in HR in a big company, and says, like, people who are younger than you walk in my office out of college talking about, well, I would like to make $100,000. And she's like, what the heck? Like, I remember we were happy with whatever. I was happy with that, whatever I got my first job. And so I just think that there is a courage and a bravery in making your own decisions, whatever that looks like as a woman. And I'm not sure that I'm going to accept that it just has to do with party.
I think part of the explanation is that women are just making different choices. But I will say, you know, looking back at my childhood and going through school, I feel like, especially in the millennial generation, and maybe you experience this too, there was definitely a shift of focus in the way that we raised young girls to really more highly value career and ambition and sort of chasing money. And the idea of the stay-at-home mom seemed a little less in vogue. Like, it wasn't
for sure
cool, right?
Yeah.
And so I wonder if a lot of us were sort of inculcated with this idea that success was defined differently than having a family. And if that sort of subconsciously drove some of us to think more about the, you know, being in Bali and writing for the magazines,
right,
as opposed to prioritizing family. My concern, because people are allowed to do what they want. I don't want to force anybody to have kids. It's not The Handmaid's Tale, despite all the costumes we often see outside here in DC. But my concern is that we have higher levels of unhappiness as women, particularly young women. Our rates of depression and anxiety are rising faster than ever. And we do see a difference when we study happiness and fulfillment and how people feel about their lives, that people who are married and have children tend to rate higher levels of happiness. And so I am just always constantly wondering if there is this connection between a prioritizing of career for a lot of women in our generation and the declining levels of happiness. And are we missing out on perhaps true fulfillment by eschewing family creation?
And I think that there's nuance here. I have friends that are approaching 40 and saying, I don't know if I'm going to have a kid, and like contemplating what that means to them, and if they really care, or if they care that the option's being taken away, because it gets harder as you get older.
Right.
So I get that that's a real feeling too. And I don't know. I think that people have to figure out what works well for them. You know, I don't know that if I had planned out a kid that I would have had one immediately at the time that I did, but now that it works, it's just chaotic and beautiful, and we're just going to work it out. And so that's what I mean. It's like, I don't know what to say, because also I don't think you should be in an unhappy relationship just because you want a family. And some people will be like, well, it's time to settle down, and this is a good man or a good woman. It's like, don't do that either. I don't know that leads to long-term happiness. Maybe in studies they're saying that on a poll, but are you really happy? You go to bed at night, you tell us. So that's kind of the thing that women and men probably have to grapple with, is like, what do you want? Sit with yourself at night and figure that out. Because if you want kids, like my other best friend who's adamant about it, well, she started at 23. And she wants that many kids, she's going to have no issue. She had all her kids, and they're all grown now, and she has her big life. And she's about to start a whole new chapter at 40 where she can explore with her husband in any way she likes, because her kids are pretty much grown. Mm-hmm. And so I think that you have to think about that. And I think we should start having conversations with women, young women particularly, about planning that. Because a lot of my friends didn't even freeze their eggs that wanted to have kids.
We got to be real. We have to be real with women, because I think a lot of them believe that with scientific advancements that they can just get pregnant whenever. It's not that easy.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. So, I mean, we can go on. Obviously, we like this topic. Yeah. We can talk about this for hours. We have a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.